Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video I am going to be reading the whole entire Anne series, Anne of Green Gables, a pretty popular children's book series that I've never read myself, so I'm so excited for this. This video probably will have spoilers. I don't know how I can keep myself from not talking about some of the things that happen in this book. So if you plan on reading the Anne series, I would definitely highly recommend for you to read it. And I would highly recommend you not to watch this video. That way you don't get any spoilers before you read the Anne series. Alright, so I did actually read this book last October, so this video isn't completely truthful, but this is the only book of the series that I have already read previously. I was getting ready to read book 2 of the series. This was like, I guess a week ago or so. In the beginning of the book, she is 16 and a half, and I was like, wait, what? Like, I don't remember her being so grown at the end of the book. And then I realized I don't really remember anything that happened to the book. I do remember one very tragic thing that happened at the end, and I will get into that eventually. But other than that, like, I didn't really remember much about the book, and so I was like, I have to do a reread before I continue on in the series because I'll have no idea about anything unless I go back and reread this book. And let me just say, I am so glad I did that because this was such a fun read, the most fun that I've had reading a book in such a long time. I went slowly through this book and annotated as I went. It was also fun because I obviously knew everything that was going to happen, although a lot of things I had completely forgot about, and I'll get into that too. But I obviously knew the premise of the book and a lot of things that would happen. I already knew all of our characters and all of that, so I didn't have to be like reintroduced to them. And that definitely did help. But still, there was so much in this book that I forgot about. And it was just so fun. I did do a little color code of the tabs. This is the first time I've ever done that. I've seen other people who have done that, and I just think it's so cool. So I have different colors. I did mess up. Anyway, I have quotes I love in green, moments I love in pink, friendship and love in yellow, sad moments in blue, and then funny moments in purple. I tried to match the cover. They really don't match the cover, especially since they're like so light. But I did the best I could with what I had. So anyway, Anne of Green Gables. Anne is an orphan girl. Her parents died, and she was living with a few different people before she got sent to this orphanage, which her living with other people is actually significant later on in the book, but I'm not going to get into all of those details right this second. So there's Anne, this little orphan girl at the orphanage, and then we have Matthew and Marilla, who are brother and sister. The first time I read this book, I did not realize they were siblings. Don't know how I missed that. I actually remember talking to my husband about it, and he was like, aren't they siblings? Like, they're siblings, right? Or something like that. And I was like, what? They are not siblings. They're definitely siblings. They're up in years. They live in a nice big house that's kind of like far away from everyone. But because they are up in years, and Matthew specifically has been very ill and needs help around his house more, he is looking to get a little orphan boy to adopt. They talk to like a different person who gets them connected, and it turns out that there was a misunderstanding and they end up getting an orphan girl instead, Anne. And Anne is just so, she is such a character. Like, she is just such a fun character. She is very outgoing and talkative, and she just says whatever's on her mind, and I love that about Anne. She is just adorable. But another great quality about Anne is she's very optimistic. She's always looking at the bright side. She loves to imagine things, and she likes to imagine the good in everything, which I love because I feel like I'm very quick to imagine problems and imagine things going the worst of ways. But Anne likes to imagine good things happen, and even when she's in bad situations, she even still imagines that she's in a better situation or that something good will come out of that. And I just love that about Anne. I learned so much from her. So anyways, Matthew ends up falling in love with Anne on the car ride back to Marilla. I don't really know what exactly draws Matthew in, but I feel like I can really relate to Matthew because he's a very quiet guy, very shy. He likes to stay to himself, and I'm one of those people too. And those kind of people, like very introverted people, we're drawn to those more outgoing people because we don't want to do the talking and things like that. And so that person will just do all the talking for us. They don't expect us to even answer them, because some people are like super outgoing, but they still like just ask you questions trying to force you to talk. And that's not fun either. We just want someone who will just talk for us and we can just listen, and they're just so entertaining. And so I think that's the main reason that Matthew is so soft-hearted towards Anne, because I know if I were Matthew, that's where my heart would be. So anyway, the whole way home, he's just so happy that he's not the one who has to break it to Anne that she is not going to be staying with them because they actually wanted a boy, not a girl. And so they end up going back, and Marilla finds out, and she's pretty angry and upset that it's not a boy, which makes sense, I guess. Like, I can understand that. But she's pretty hard on the girl. But Anne is still so optimistic through it all. And she's thankful that at least she has this one day to sleep in this beautiful house, and she gets to see all these beautiful sights and all that stuff. So she's just thankful for that for the most part. Obviously, she's still upset over the fact that she's not staying. But eventually, Marilla does end up wanting to keep Anne. And so they adopt Anne, and she lives with them, and this little girl is just so much fun. She's always finding herself into trouble somehow, not really purposely. She's not a bad kid, but she does fall into trouble because she's just so careless. And yeah, it's so funny, it's so witty. I just love everything about it. And so I'm not going to go into the whole story because I'm going to assume that if you're still watching this video, then you've already read Anne or you've watched the movies or something. And so now I'm just going to share a little bit of like my favorite parts of the book and some of my thoughts and things like that. So I'm actually going to go through some of my tabs and share some of my like favorite things from this book by looking at that. So we're going to start, I know this is a little weird because it's like down the list, but in the friendship and love category. I did this because I had read this book before and I knew there was a lot of friendship between Anne and her friend Diana. But then there's another character whose name is Gilbert. And him and Anne do not like each other. They actually are pretty much enemies because of an incident that happened in school where he called her carrots because of her red hair. And that's something that Anne hates about herself, is her red hair and her freckles. So they become enemies ever since. But at the same time, I just feel like there's that tension that is like an enemies to lovers almost. And so I definitely marked all of those things with like Gilbert and Anne because I feel like it's just like foreshadowing and leading up to a great romance between them. I'm not sure because like I said, I haven't gone on further with the series, but I'm just assuming that's what's going to happen, and I think I would be really happy if that did happen. But anyway, some of the things I marked, actually I marked something early on in the book. It was talking about how Marilla and another character in this book, Rachel Lynde, which I hate Rachel. She is like the town busybody. She's nosy. She likes to be in everyone's business, and she also has to give her 2 cents on everything. And so her and Marilla, it says that something that for lack of any other name might be called friendship existed and always had existed between Marilla and Miss Rachel in spite of, or perhaps because of, their dissimilarity. So I think it's just so funny because these are the 2 most disliked characters, at least in my opinion. Like, I dislike these 2 characters the most. And it's so funny that these 2 unlikable characters become friends. And also they are so different from each other, and yet they're both characters that I do not like, although Marilla does warm up to me. And also probably because I have read this book before, I was already softened towards her in the beginning, so I was already like seeing like where she was coming from, like not wanting Anne, and then like when she was punishing Anne for things, like I could totally see where she was coming from with what she was doing. I don't think anything that she did was wrong, maybe a little bit harsh, but like everyone parents differently. And I can just see where she's coming from. But anyway, I just thought that was super funny that those 2 are friends. So things like that I tabbed, like moments with her and Diana. I'm going to try to find something with Gilbert though. Later on in the book, like I feel like Gilbert has like a little bit of a crush on Anne, even though he doesn't want her to know. And I feel like even when he teased her because he liked her and he didn't know what else to do. And also he's just a big tease in general, so he teases everyone. And so I feel like he was teasing her because he liked her. And so I feel like Gilbert just has a little crush on Anne, and Anne does too because she thinks about him a lot. It's mostly like rivalry, and she doesn't like want to say his name or anything, but at the same time she is thinking about him a whole lot. And so that's why I just feel like there's going to be like an enemies to lovers later on in the series, but we shall see. So anyway, that's friendship and love. There never actually ends up being any kind of love in the book. The book actually does end with them becoming friends, which I thought that was a great way for it to end. Here's like the almost last page. You can see like I was underlining. Yeah, I just thought they were so cute. The chapter before that is very sad. I think it's the chapter before that. If you know, you know. I'm not going to spoil it, but very, very sad. And so I just thought that was a happy ending because I was just getting super sad with that occurrence that happened. And then also Anne was leaving for school, and Marilla was sad. Like, it was just a lot of sad things happening at the end, and I was like getting pretty depressed, and then it ended happily. And like I said, I forgot most of that stuff that happened at the end. It was refreshing to read it, and like I literally was almost brought to tears because of it. So moments I want to remember are things that I just think are like significant or important. So like, for instance, well, here we have where Anne was, what's the word? Not framed. I literally cannot think of the word that I'm looking for, but Marilla thought that Anne had stolen something from her, when in reality she hadn't. And like, there was a point where she like even gave like a big apology for it and confessed to it, even though she didn't actually do it because she wanted to go to the picnic. Marilla did end up apologizing, and I just thought that was significant to mark, because even though Anne was in the wrong for lying and she had originally touched it in the first place, Marilla was definitely wrong for blaming Anne. That's the word I'm thinking of, blaming. And she did end up apologizing. So that's something I marked. Just things like that, like little things or things I just want to remember. This one was kind of random. It wasn't like anything specific like the other ones, but it was a fun one to do. Like, if I didn't think it fell into any of the other categories, I would just mark it with that pink tab. Now, quotes I love, obviously these are like sentences or phrases that I thought were relatable, or I just like the way they are worded and things like that. And Anne is just, I just love her. She's so poetic when she speaks, and like, I need her mindset where she just is so positive. This is after she was told that she wasn't going to be adopted. I don't know if this is after she had then been told she was adopted, but it says, "She cannot be in the depths of despair this morning. I never can be in the morning. It is a splendid thing that there are mornings." Oh yeah, this is whenever she thought she was going to stay, but she wasn't. "But I feel very sad. I've just been imagining that it was really me you wanted after all, and that I was to stay here forever and ever. It was a great comfort while it lasted. But the worst of imagining things is that the time comes when you have to stop, and that hurts." So I love that quote there where it says the worst of imagining things is that the time comes when you have to stop, and that hurts, because I totally relate to that, like imagining things and then eventually you realize that's not the reality. That hurts. Some of the other quotes that I love in this book. This is another like great Anne optimistic quote. "Oh, Marilla, looking forward to things is half the pleasure of them. You mayn't get the things themselves, but nothing can prevent you from having the fun of looking forward to them." So that goes hand in hand with the other quote that I just said. Imagining things isn't bad, even though the worst part is knowing that it's not true. You do have the fun part of looking forward to it. So I love that. Oh, I like this one. I underlined it. "It's always wrong to do anything you can't tell the minister's wife." I feel like that's just a good piece of advice for everyone. If you don't want to tell your pastor's wife, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Those are some of the quotes that I highlighted and tabbed. There's obviously a lot more. There's just so many good quotes in this book. It's very just poetic, the writing, and I just love classics for that reason, because there's just so much poetry and just imagery and things like that. Like, I just love that flowery writing and the way that everything's like romanticized. I just think it's just such a wonderful part of fiction and a good reason why reading is just so much fun. This is a book that actually like takes you out of the real world and gives you that place of escape. I feel like some reading still has those hard topics and makes you think. This one is just lighthearted and kind of like takes you into another world where you can just have fun and laugh. Speaking of laughing, there was quite a few like funny things, and a lot of these aren't just like quotes that are funny, like it's a whole story that's funny, so I really won't go into that. Some of these things I'll just like, you know, that's kind of funny. Like one of these, Marilla is pretending to be Anne, and so she's like talking as if Anne were the one saying it, and I just thought that was funny. There's one time where she had to apologize for Miss Lind for something, and she just really was very crazy with it and over the top, and I just thought that was funny. The way that Anne just has to say everything that's on her mind. She says the things that everyone else wants to say but knows that they can't because of manners, you know, and so that would make me laugh. Just things like that. Okay, so that's funny moments, and then sad moments. Obviously I marked things like whenever she was first telling her story of how she became an orphan and the way that she was treated in other houses that she lived in. Whenever her and Diana were no longer allowed to see each other, that was super sad, so I tapped that. And then near the end, I feel like, look at those. I don't know if you can really see because the lighting's so bad, but near the end there's a whole lot more blue because it's just very sad. She's getting ready to go off to school, I think. It's like some kind of school for like smart people to become teachers or something. And so she's going off, and it's just so sad because her friend Diana can't come with her. So there's that part, and then she's saying bye to Matthew and Marilla, who she's just grown so close with, and so that's super sad. And it's just really sad at the end. So there's a lot of sad moments. Like I said, I'm glad it did end on a happy note with her and Gilbert becoming friends again. Yeah, it was just great. So anyway, I do love this book so much. I just love Anne and the way she thinks, and it just honestly helped me a lot to think of my own perspective and like just to think of the good things, to imagine good things instead of always thinking of the bad things. And then I also just love the character development with like Marilla, just things like that. Like I just love the book so much, and it's also just such a fun read, and I'm just loving the series. I love everything about it. It's just great. The one thing about this book that I kind of don't like, and it's not even that I don't like it, like this book is 5 stars. I can't really say anything that's wrong with the book. It's not any, and this isn't something that's wrong with the book. It's just something that I wasn't really expecting from the book. But anyway, it's the fact that Anne grows up so much in this book. At the beginning of the book, she's 11 years old, a little scraggly little orphan girl. And then at the end of the book, she's 16 years old and going off to become a teacher. Like at the very end of the book, she's going to become a teacher. And that is just so crazy to me. So much time in this little tiny book. They focus in on that first year where she's 11. They focus on that a whole lot for like maybe the first half of the book or so. I'm not exactly sure. And then all of a sudden it's just year after year after year, and she's just getting older. And like you see like Marilla being so sad that Anne's growing up, and there's me who's being so sad because Anne's growing up. Like I just couldn't believe how fast she was growing up, and I wish maybe we could have slowed down a little bit and saw a little bit more of those childhood years instead of skipping straight from like her 1 year of childhood all the way until now she's like grown up and about to start her life as an adult. And she's not really an adult, she's only 16, but I guess that's kind of where society in this time, I'm not really sure like where this takes place or anything. I'm guessing like maybe 1800s or something. I don't know honestly, but I guess that's kind of like when you become an adult kind of and start your family and all that when you're about 16 years old. In fact, Anne is about to become a teacher and she's only 16 years old, which is so crazy to me. But it is a little bit sad because I miss like our little Anne, and like a lot of the sad moments near the back of the book as well is things that Marilla was saying was different about Anne. Like she's less talkative and stuff. And there's even, I don't think I'll be able to find it, but Anne was explaining why she wasn't the same way anymore. But yeah, she just grew up, and she just realized that whenever you don't say everything that's on your mind, you're less likely to get judged. I feel like that's one of the main parts of growing up. Like that innocence is taken away from you when you're a kid. You're not worried about what everyone thinks. You're not trying to please everyone, so you don't say everything that's on your mind. Like a little kid just shares everything because they're just so excited and they just love to tell you everything that's on their mind. But when you're older, you feel like nobody cares about that, so why would I share? And I feel like that was a part of Anne growing up, was like realizing I'm kind of annoying and I talk a lot and people might not like that. And I'm like, oh, but I like that, Anne. So that did make me sad. It is a little bit weird that she is now grown up, but at the same time, I totally understand. And I do think it's good. I'm excited to see where the rest of the series goes. There are a lot of books in the series, so I'm really wondering like what all is going to happen. It looks like there's 8 books in the series. I am currently reading the second book, and I am going to talk a little bit about that real quick too, while it's fresh on my mind and before I get further on. Now as I read, I can just talk about it like as I'm reading, and that'll be a lot better. Lots of books. I don't know where we're going to go because we're already at her being 16 years old and being a teacher. But anyway, it's super exciting. One of the things I'm most excited about with reading this series is I get to watch the movies at the end. And my husband says that I will love them, so I'm so excited about watching the movies. But first, I have to read the books.